organized, very neat, spotless appearance, all the rest. It made a good impression on all the customers, Jewish and especially not Jewish. But he died when she was 4.5 years old. Understand? And that means that she didn't have a father from 4.5, but it wasn't so bad because she had an older brother. And this, by the way, is not unusual what I'm saying about. If you know what mortality was like in those days, it's not unique. She had an older brother. My mother was the youngest, I think, of 9. And her father had been married. This was the third marriage. He had children from a first wife, and then she died, and the second wife, and then this was the third one. And that also was not unusual in those days. Just think of the medical services available to us today that didn't exist at those days, and think in the course of your life of the different medical problems you've had that modern medicine is unable to handle, and had it not been, you wouldn't be here. And that's the answer to it. So she was raised by the oldest brother, who later moved to America. And she often said that she did not miss having a father growing up because she had a father. You have someone to make Kiddush and run the Seder and you provide direction and show the love and take you to, I don't know, what they'd have PTA meetings, but whatever they had over there, the equivalent of it. And the result is that they lived in extreme poverty because in the world I'm talking about, there was no unemployment insurance, no welfare, no Medicare, no social safety net. If you don't have money, you don't have money, and you die. You live off scraps or whatever they did. I don't know how they made it. Because think about what I'm saying. A widow with 8, 9 children, some older, some younger, some a baby. Tremendous poverty. And as my mother used to tell the story, in Europe, if you come from a nice family, you don't want to show that you're poor. It's even worse. That's the biggest sin. And so they used to boil the water on Friday afternoon so people should think that they have food. And, you shouldn't look like you're one of the poor, even if you are. And the result was that she had what she always described, even though she didn't have a father, it's a very happy childhood. And she was too young when her father passed away to realize what it meant. And when she was 5, 6 years old, the First World War ended, and the whole world turned upside down. And the Austro-Hungarian Empire, for example, disintegrated. And a whole bunch of wars broke out all through Central and Eastern Europe. And in place of the empires that had existed beforehand, a whole bunch of new countries arose or grabbed pieces. For example, Hungary was pretty much pulled apart. So the glorious good old years that the Jews in Hungary, which almost 1 million of them had, until 1914, or if you want to be technical, 1918, ceased. I could go on, but I won't. You understand what I'm saying? And most Jews in Europe found themselves in a much worse political situation, and therefore economic and other situation, than they had been prior to the First World War. You understand what I'm saying? If you lived in Poland, the good years was before the First World War. It got worse after. Then you had Poland to worry about, which didn't exist beforehand because it was part of Austria and Russia. Then you had countries that got big, like Romania, which was fanatically anti-Semitic and always passing all kind of gezeras. You had these new countries like Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia that were trying their best, not successfully, to drive the Jews out of all the areas of business so that they could hand it over to citizens of the country who were not Jewish. You had countries where Jews who had jobs under the old regime prior to the First World War, for example, lots of Jews worked for the railroad, lots of Jews, Hasidim even, didn't matter. Had tobacco stores and various businesses were, by a stroke of a pen, deprived of this because they wrote the new laws in such a way as to grandfather in reverse fashion anybody who had business. So let's put it this way. The only way you can have a store is if you were a member of your immediate family and served in the army for 3 generations or something like that. That's a way of saying that you can't be a Jew. And what do you do if your family, you lose your business by law? It was really rough, and there was massive starvation and extremely difficult times throughout Eastern and Central Europe. But in this regard, my mother was lucky because she was in the one place where this did not happen. And I'm talking about Czechoslovakia, which became a separate independent country after the First World War. And that's two halves. The Czechs are one group and the Slovaks are the other. And without going through all the history, they united and made one country, the Czechs really dominating over the Slovaks, which was good for the Jews, as you'll see in a second.